Good evening, friends. Welcome to this Thursday, the Juneteenth version of the Mystery Wine Blind Tasting here at Field and Main. Super excited to have all of you with us, whoever it is that's out there tasting this very expressive, pretty golden colored white wine. And quite a day it's been. I'm ready for a glass of wine. We had microbursts, kind of crazy storm that just blew through, and generators that were on and off. And quite a day. So to sit down with all of you and to chat about wine and to taste this wine, I'm ready. If you are, please chime in and let me know that you're with us this evening as we figure out what's in this particular glass. Wow, that's alluring. I think so too. Sarah and crew from Pennsylvania. This does look like it's going to be a fun one. It's going to give us some. I mean, they're already giving us a number of another options, rather. Excuse me. Bob and Dean, good evening. Hello to you guys. You're on generator power, Dean. We just kicked back on to regular power, so hopefully you're not too far behind. But boy, it just wiped us out. I don't know how it was your way, but the storm came in all of a sudden, and it was gray. Winds were like sideways, and the rain came down very, very hard. Apple Jolly Rancher. There's an undeniable apple quality. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but the apple element here. Wow. Natalie Cooper, Bennett, welcome to you guys with the Kavitskis playing along too. That's awesome. Super excited to have you with us too. We have our Pennsylvania contingent here. I hope you guys didn't have a major storm and knocked out all of your power and that you're comfortable at home. Barbara and Chris, 2 nights in a row. How magnificent. Barbara and Chris were here last night for a spectacular evening of food and wine. We had Felix Yerman here, and the Yerman wines from the Collio region, from Friuli Venezia Giulia up in the northeastern part of Italy are just extraordinary, almost as extraordinary as Felix is. He's quite a character. He spoke eloquently in a second language for hours about his family's production and their wines. It was special. So it's awesome. Dean, glad to hear everyone's okay. That explains where the power went with the trees popping down. And 100%, Natalie, this is a medium gold. It's quite rich. Candy, Kevin, Kathy, cheers to you guys. Welcome. Wow. I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself relative to the nose just because as soon as I poured it, and I poured it 1 minute prior to starting this chat with all of you, there were aromas bursting from the glass. And that's an exciting wine experience right there. And I'm excited to get more into it. Wow. It does seem viscous and almost syrupy. All right, well, let's get to this, right? We've got everybody here and introductions are being made, and that's wonderful. The viscosity of this wine, and it's chilled, and so it's so humid in here, it's already frosting the glass. But looking past that, you create that little swirl, and the rim forms, and then what's happening for yours? These, for me, are incredibly slow forming tears. And they're moving down very, very slowly. So there's a viscosity that kind of goes with the idea there, or that note about this sort of being syrupy. Dean, that's quite right. Yep. The gang is all here, which is great. And so as we're looking at that deep golden kind of color and that rich kind of profile of the legs and the tears that formed, this is, yeah, sheeting, Natalie. Like it's almost sheeting, but it's not sheeting like in watery terms, like where it's just kind of running back down the glass and has no viscosity in order to form a tear or leg. This is just like so viscous. It looks like that the whole sheet is just moving down in one big tear that forms no legs. It's just more of a sheet. Yeah, it's, when I say sheeting, typically it's more about it being like watery because it just runs back down. It doesn't have the viscosity of either residual sugar or alcohol to form something that drips. And in this case, no, it's like coating. It's more of a coating. Yeah. And then it takes a moment and then something forms by way of a tear. But in some cases, it's not even like forming anything. It's just sort of hanging out. Like there's a line of demarcation that is happening by way of the swirl, and it's just coated. Yeah, it's fascinating. So maybe we're talking about residual sugar here, which would make some sense. If you think about a syrup, after you poured it in something, it has a rim and it leaves that rim. So that sugar content in the syrup could be doing the same idea here with respect to having some residual sugar, or this could be really robust and have a good deal of residual sugar, of alcohol by way of fermenting that potential syrupy quality into a dry wine. So we'll find that out as we taste the wine, but let's smell it first. As we mentioned initially, there were quite a few aromas. I love the descriptor, Dean, or Bobbin, if it was you, of wine sheets. Yes, I'd like to sleep in wine sheets and drink my way out of the bed in the morning. There's a whole bunch of fruit here, right? We're always looking for a few things: fruit, earth, and wood. Fruit as expressed in all kinds of forms of different types of fruit, and then the characteristics of what state the fruit is in. Is it ripe? Is it underripe? Is it cooked? Is it stewed? Is it dried, raisinated? And then earth, what elements of earth might you find? From gravel, from wet sea rocks to forest floor, to trees, to elements like that. And then spice being the wood profile that you would find. So the wood represented through a series of spices, perhaps also dill or a little bit of a buttery element, sometimes a corn element. What do we pick up here in the way of fruit, earth, and wood? Natalie, it's great to pick up that there isn't necessarily an alcoholic component that showcases on the nose. Sometimes you pick up a little burning in the back of your nasal cavity. Sometimes you can just smell sort of an alcoholic element. Stone fruit. So when you hear stone fruit, right, that's what Sarah's offering here. Stone fruit, think of anything with a pit or a stone. Tree fruit, think of anything with seeds like apples and pears. Wow. All right, so from the fruit side, it's got this golden element. There's a yellow kind of oxidized apple for me too. There's some stone fruit too. I agree with that statement. There's a almost a pear-like element, and they're quite ripe. White peaches and apricot. Yeah, good calls there. Savory on the nose, some grass, ginger. Natalie, those are great notes. There's like if peanuts were made into a bread and they were toasted, pick that up, which doesn't make any sense. But there's an underlying kind of roasted, toasty, buttery bread quality that's supporting this marmalade of ripe apple, pear, apricot, white peach, beeswax, cool, honeyed element. So right off the bat, apple, beeswax, these stone fruits. There's a couple of varietals that we can think about. We don't have to rush to say it is one of those, but that we should be thinking about in the back of our mind. And when you say that honeyed element too, I think there's a quality about Viognier sometimes that presents that way. It can have a deeper, richer color. We'll find out more about the acidity, which might lead us in that direction. Chenin Blanc should be on our list. We'll see if we can pick up some lemony notes, but that beeswax, maybe some of the apple notes for sure. Is there a pepper note, like a pepper jelly to anyone else? Maybe like a jalapeno pepper jelly? So a little bit of a pyrazini pepper note, which could indicate, say, Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc, so a white Bordeaux blend, maybe, or Sauvignon Blanc mixed in with something else, something that would provide that chili note. But there's a sweetness to this too. There's a a ripeness, I should say, more than a sweetness. And then perhaps there will be actual sweetness as we taste this. So let's try it. Fruit, earth, and wood. Not as much on the wood side. Maybe that little toasted bread, right? I'm not getting a lot of spice necessarily. Mm. Sarah, I haven't tried it yet, so I can't rule out Viognier. But if it's quite acidic, then generally speaking, we would probably not think about Viognier. So that's a good note. Ooh, wow. Hmm. Dean, no, I was wondering what you're saying by that. I have not. I have not put jalapenos in my Sauvignon Blanc. I'm not on that trend. I did see someone do that, and well, I'm not going to eschew that or poo-poo that in any way because I would happily have a dish with with the chilies in it and then drink some Sauvignon Blanc. So what's the difference of putting a little bit in your wine? Um, it's not something I've tried. Not something I'm enticed to try. I'm one of those people who doesn't like. I don't really like things in my ice cream. I don't. I like a purity of flavor. I don't really like inclusions, if you will, in a lot of things. My wife has convinced me over 15 years of marriage now that walnuts and chocolate chip cookies are acceptable, and not only that, they're pretty tasty. But generally speaking, I wouldn't want to put something in a wine and then drink it. I don't like bubble tea. I hate that experience of the tapioca coming through the straw. So I would like to eat my jalapenos and drink my wine. Enough about me. Let's go more into this wine. So, what was your initial impression as you tasted this? Thinking about flavor, of course, the fruit, earth, and wood. What flavors did you pick up? But also think about taste. Where's the acidity at? What's the texture like? Where's the alcohol at on this? Is there tannin? Is there age? Is it represented that way? More acidic and less sweet, so a little bit higher acid. Is it high acid or more medium acid? Hmm. How do you determine how acidic it is? It's kind of by the length of how long you salivate. That's one way to think about it. So if it was less than 10 seconds, it's not very acidic. Light acidity. If it's more than 10 seconds and less than 20, maybe medium. If it's more than 20 and you're still salivating, it's a little higher in acidity. And I think we're in a medium. A medium. There's a quality about it that is aggressive at front and kind of makes you think it's going to linger for a long period of time, and then it sort of truncates and drops off. Not in an unpleasant way, though. There's a freshness to the acidity that allows the wine to be more palatable, I think, than if it was just the aromas of these kind of really ripe fruit, stone fruit, tree fruits, and no acidity. It would seem flabby and would be less enjoyable to drink. There's a shortness to the finish that maybe indicates a little bit of age, where this wine isn't as fresh as it once was. And that goes maybe with a little bit of that first note I made about the peanut bread, which is a ridiculous note, an oxidized quality. There's a little bit of a nuttiness here on this wine that presents more in an oxidized fruit than it is a nut. So that browned apple on the counter after you cut it, more like that. Grapey and raisiny, yeah. So I think adding into the mix of the Viognier and the Chenin Blanc, we can think about like a Grenache blend where you get some of that grapiness, something. I mean, just tasting Pinot Grigio yesterday, there's a quality about some of that fruit that we've expressed being present in Pinot Grigio, but there's like more depth. And while the Yermann Pinot Grigio from last night has a lot of depth, it generally I don't think about Pinot Grigio giving a lot of depth. Maybe we should consider an Alsatian wine that has this kind of great intensity of flavor and an acidity to it. Sarah, I think that's a fun note, right? There's a ton of identifiable characteristics, familiar notes in this wine, but they're from a bunch of different wines and they're all found here. So is it a blend of all the interesting white wines we've had in the past, or What accounts for all of this? It's a fascinating wine on the nose. Hmm. And the acidity, it's like puckering, and it's a core of acidity. It's right up front, like right here up front in the mouth. It doesn't like expand back, does it? Hmm. Natalie, it's not a wine you've had before, and that's cool. I think that may be fair. It's reminiscent for me of a couple of different wines, like an older white Chateau Neuf de Pop, a Rhone blend that has some Roussanne in it. It has Viognier in it. It has Grenache in it. Um, it has Claret and Picpoul and others, Marsanne and Roussanne. And it gives you some of this complexity, and it gives you some of this weight and density. And when it's got a little bit of age, there's this slight oxidative note. So it's a little reminiscent of that. It's a little bit reminiscent of some interesting kind of more aged, perhaps Chenin Blanc, but not completely. Uh, ah, apple tart with no sugar. Yeah, yeah, right. You know, like the apples are baked, and there's a concentration to them because of that. And they're not tart baking apples; they're more on the yellowy side. But then you have this crust that's not a lot of sugar, right? It's about the sweetness of the apple because it's been baked. And this is dry, right? Going back to our visual, when we were wondering if the syrupy appearance would indicate a level of dryness, right? There is no residual sugar here. This is a very dry wine on the finish, puckering acidity in the start, and then in the middle, it just sort of rounds out with that fruit expression. Virginia Seyval Blanc. Interesting. Interesting. Generally speaking, the Seyval that I've had is a little bit brighter, not quite as oxidative, but that's Evan, say a little bit more about why you think it's Seyval. And is that a reference point to a Seyval you've tried, or think the acidity is where you find Seyval? I like the element of Viognier being perhaps part of this blend too. You know, maybe it's a white blend from here in Virginia, for example. Like Jake Bushing makes a white blend, or I know, for example, the Paonian Springs wine from Walsh has a little bit of Viognier sometimes in it, and that has this textural quality about it that gives it that sort of beeswax element, that honeyed note, some of that apricot for sure, white peach. So maybe a blend, and part of why I'm comfortable thinking more about a blend in this context is the note of Sarah's, perhaps, that we had characteristics of this wine that are found in other wines, but this is all in one. And so sometimes that multi-dimensional quality about a wine is a factor of there being really a multi-dimensional series of grapes that are in the blend. That grapiness, that like white Welch's grape juice part, is coming out more now too in the taste. It's familiar for you, Candy. That's cool too. Familiar like Chardonnay, familiar like Sauvignon Blanc, familiar like Riesling. Is there a grape that it is familiar, or a particular wine, or Upper New York State whites? So Riesling, kind of Gruner Veltliner, Arquetzatelli, something of that sort. Dean, is it a grape varietal, or is it more like the feeling of a wine you've had up that way, and it just has a sensation like that? As you parse through your taste memory, is it something that you're reflecting on because of an actual taste that's associated with a varietal? Is it a taste that's associated with an experience you had, and how you lay into those responses that your palate is offering, your taste memory is offering, and how you parse them out relative to this wine is part of the joy of tasting and blind tasting. And how you build your own canon of reference points. And so, you don't necessarily have to share the same reference point to arrive at a wine, but if being able to describe that, right? This is like, you know, a cobbler my grandmother made where she mixed apricots and peaches together. Well, that's a great reference point for you. And if that reference point can be linked to a specific wine or a style of wine or a type of wine or a place that wine comes from, you have a great reference point. You have a tasting note for you that can be explained to someone else, but might not be appreciated the same way for you as for you. Hmm. The power of a taste flashback is wonderful. And like I said, that's if you can tie that memory to an actual taste now and then reference that memory again, those memories are stronger than anything else. You can learn what a peach smells like, but if you have a reference of that peach that you tried your first time and really remembered what an actual peach was, that's more powerful than, that this has an element of peach. Um, if you can have those taste memory references and then can use them to help explain wine to other people, that's wonderful. Save Hall was a wild guest. Fair enough. I don't think super wild, but fair enough. As a thought exercise for this at this point, we're at 22 minutes, which means is the wine going to change? It has 2 more minutes to be in that window of where we find most wines change. Um, if this was a white Rhone, and if this was a Viognier blend, say from Virginia or Arizona or U.S., is there a quality about this wine that puts you in New York, i.e., the US, or is there a quality about this wine that takes you to Europe or somewhere else for that matter? But for that exercise, is there a way that if I'm asking, is this European or from the US, that is definitive for you, clear? Like in that question alone, it's obviously one or the other without necessarily having to know the varietal, without having to know where exactly it's from. Is there a clear one or the other for you? Hmm. And is there a stoniness coming out for you at 23 minutes for me? There's like a stony river rock element that's coming out now. Hmm. Yeah. So warm climate Europe for Natalie. Sarah reminds her of the Arizona Viognier, um, which is great. So I'm not saying there's one way or another there, right way or another, but that's how your process of deducing what this wine might be can work, where you say, I have this reference point and this is similar to that. And so I think I'm going to go with that. And then you can also use that reference point and push against it and say, all right, well, from what it was like in Arizona, this wine is exactly like that, or this wine is differing from that. And so maybe that's a reason to consider it being from there and then realizing it's probably not quite because of this characteristic. And there's a definite pitfall to doing this relative to one wine from one place that you have a memory about. Not one wine from one place is not representative of the whole place, right? And so neighbors make wine differently. We know that very clearly in tasting wine here in this Virginia region. You go from one producer to another, and they all make Petit Manseng, and they are similar but different. And so there's a danger in just becoming pigeonholed by one wine, one place. I know that place, but there's a way that this can help inform your understanding of wine, where you have a reference point, and as you build more reference points, you have more to draw on. So steel elsewhere. So part of me appreciates that steel comment because of the first note of acidity that we're getting. And part of me has a difficulty reconciling that with that sort of oxidative note that I wouldn't think you would get in stainless steel. So maybe there's a stainless steel fermentation to this, and then there's a neutral oak barrel that is involved, or maybe this is aged a little bit, and that oxidative note is about some age. It's hard. The golden color can be the indication of age, and so maybe there's a bit of age here. Eastern Europe. Oh, thank you for that. This is where I have oh, okay. Yeah, like ferment from Hungary, for example. This could have, yeah, that could have an absolute application there. Ferment, and oftentimes Chenin Blanc are kind of confused. There's a quality about that. What other varietals were you consider from Eastern Europe? That's a neat idea. Randy, welcome. Thank you for offering that. Yeah, Georgia, Arcatatelli. I'm not getting a lot of oak either. It's not like a present oak expression in the way of spice. It's more about that oxidative note in the fruit. Dave's guess was ferment. Dave, well done, man. That's awesome. That's a great guess. Lob that in there, man. Albarino. I think their Albarino is definitely in the running for sure in the beginning, and it may still be. I'm not saying it's not, Kathy. The pear note, that sort of stone, that tree fruit quality, absolutely could be Albarino. It's a little more oxidative. There's a couple of producers that make Albarino that I know of that are more amber, and this could be in that camp. Has the acidity, that stoniness, that minerality. Sure. All right, so ferment, Albarino, a Viognier kind of Rhone blend, a Viognier Virginia blend. Got options here, people. Options. Where do you want to go? Take a minute, swirl this wine in your mouth, really swirl it, like get it all over. This is one of rare occasions where a white wine, it has tannin. It has this high acidity or medium acidity that's running in concert with the tannin. But the tannin is a little grip that's hanging out on the gums. And that's a neat expression of some skin contact with some ripe skins, some ripe grapes, giving us this kind of golden color. And Palomino from Spain, from southern Spain in the region of maybe Jerez, a dry version of that. That's really cool. We have a fun wine on the list right now called from the grape Torello from Panedes, from the Cava region, outside of Cava, but where Cava's grown. And it's got a little oxidative note to it, and it's in concentration. Man, this is a stumper. Where do you want to go? Where are you going to plant your flags? Eastern Europe, ferment? Are you doing Albarino from, say, Western Spain? Are you doing Viognier blend or Viognier perhaps from Virginia or from the southern part of France and the Rhone? Where are we headed? Walked right back kind of by Chenin Blanc, but could this be Loire Valley Chenin Blanc or Steen Chenin Blanc from South Africa? Is it a blend? Everybody go on record. Where are you going? I comfortably don't know. I think this is a blend. I don't think this is one grape. And I don't think this is domestic. Although when I say that, you know, the Arizona idea, the New York idea, the Virginia idea, these non-dominant regions, I don't think this is California. I don't think this is West Coast. I think there's a compelling argument there. And that's kind of fun. This is a wine that I think if I was to try to summarize what we've all said today, it's that there's a quality about this wine that is both familiar and yet at the same time an idea that this is not a wine that I've never tried. And so that's very cool. And so there are reference points here that take me in a bunch of places, and I think I could make an argument. This is a Viognier blend, a white Rhone blend from the southeastern part of France. This has elements of an Eastern Hungarian kind of blend, perhaps, with a little bit of Weissburgunder or Pinot Blanc and ferment, and it's kind of an Austrian white blend, a Hungarian white blend, or a Georgian white blend. And there's a little bit of skin contact. There's a little bit of that oxidative element. There's an argument that we haven't really talked about too, that this could be sort of Jura and Alpine with respect to Sauvignon, that has a little bit of viscosity to it. This could be domestic, New York in a blend. And so I don't know. I don't know at all definitively enough for me to pick a spot, but I have to. So I'm going to go. This is like the final sip, like where I'm hoping I get this real clarity and I come out just swinging. And I'm not going to be able to do that. So I'm going to like limp in to southeastern France, white blend. And is there age? I think there's like a little bit of age. I think this is older than new. And so 4 years of age, 21, something like that. A little bit of age. It's beginning to mature a little bit. So white Rhone blend, 2021. That's where I'm going. I'm not at all confident in that. Let's see. Where are we at with this little number? That's really a big number. It's not fair to call it a little number. It's got a lot of heft. Le Naturel. So this is a Blanco from Navarra, from Spain. Okay. So maybe I'm assuming Garnacha. Yeah. So Navarra is a region of Spain, an organic wine, and the vintage is 23. So I'm wrong on the vintage, wrong on the place. 12% alcohol. 12%. If you have a chance to take a look at this, can someone look up this wine, Le Naturel, and 12%. So we didn't get that alcoholic expression. Boy, the viscosity on the appearance of the wine, so different. I would never have been able to peg 12%. It didn't present alcoholic and it didn't linger alcoholic, but it was so rich. And at that level of alcohol, that's a wow. So Grenache Blanc or Garnacha Blanca or Blanco, one varietal, all that complexity, lower alcohol. Dang. That's very cool. And youth, like it's presenting in a way that is a lesson. How about that? Wow. Very minimalist, neat label. I mean, there's so much more in the bottle than the label reflects. But maybe that's their point too. It's what's in the bottle that counts. That naturally made Grenache, Grenache Blanca in this case, is just providing all this complexity and intrigue. And that's where that Grenache element, kind of that grapey note that we were picking up, I think comes from, but all the other expressive fruit. So think about this as a taste reference point, and that Grenache can be so many things. It can be richer and can be riper and sun-kissed in the context of a warm region, and Navarro is that. I'm reading the back label here. But also that interesting like beeswaxy honeyed note and that richness. So quite a bit here. Apple, pear, apricot, beeswax. No real particular spice to speak of, but there's an oxidative note about this, and maybe that's just those skins being just drenched in sun, and they develop a leatheriness that presents then in this color expression that is golden. Wow, that's, I don't know if I'd go so far as to call Julie dastardly, but that is a wonderfully challenging wine and a very instructive one. So for a white, and the truth of being that we don't taste a lot of whites together, this was a really cool one. I hope you found it as well, but I will be thinking about this one for a while. So we hope to see a number of you here soon. And if not, then I will see you again, of course, in July. We take a little break here at the restaurant the first week of July. So happy 4th of July for everyone, in addition to Juneteenth today. And I will see you after the 4th, if not before, here at the restaurant. But until then, many more happy drinking experiences. Cheers, everybody.